Alright, so we got a projector so we can project our song sheets up on the wall, but our projector normally projects in landscape mode, which means it's wider than it is tall. And so what happens is you have to, you get to the end of what's on the screen and you have to scroll down, which is a major pain. You don't want to have to stop and do that, or somebody has to be dedicated to just doing the scrolling. So what I want to do is be able to project my song sheets in portrait mode, which would mean that they would look like this, but my projector doesn't have a function to where it will project like that. But what I'm going to show you is I can take my PDF file and rotate it 90 degrees to where it looks right. Alright, so when I do it that way, I can see my whole song sheet all at once. Alright, so if you need help learning how to rotate your pages in different programs, I'll put those videos at the end of this video so that you can check that out. Now I might have to change my scaling to make sure it goes left to right, but as you can see, I've got it in portrait mode. The only problem is I'm going to have to rotate my projector to get it to do this. So that's where the stand modification comes in. Now, one thing you might be wondering about is I've got a lot of extra stuff on the top and the bottom of this page, and I could change my settings or something to get rid of some of that, but it really doesn't matter because the maximum I can get, even if I change my display settings, is the page all the way from the left side to the right side. So if I've got extra stuff on the top or the bottom, it really doesn't matter because the biggest the page can get is determined by the left to the right, or in this case actually the height of the window. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. We'll just let the top and the bottom be ignored. Alright, so we have our projector, and we know that when it's setting like this, it projects in landscape mode, so the picture is wider than it is tall. And so I need to be able to flip that. This projector doesn't have a function that I can change the orientation. So what I'm going to have to do is actually physically change the orientation of the projector to where it sets like this when it projects on the wall. So what I did was I ordered this laptop stand, and I ordered from Pile, and it's a universal device stand, kind of intended for laptops and such, and they have a couple different models. I knew I was not going to need a lot of height, so I chose the shorter model, the 22 by 35 inch. So I can't scale up and down a whole lot, but at any rate, that's kind of what we're using here. And as you can see, it has a function here where I can put the legs out and set it on the ground, and then this thing has some holes in the back that these brackets clip onto, and then the brackets fit over here. And the nice part about this stand is because it does this, I can change the orientation here so that when it's standing, it would either be flat, or I can rotate it to where now my plate is standing up and down, and then I bolt my projector onto here, and now it's up and down, so I can project my song sheets in a portrait fashion. The only problem is this is plastic, okay? And I'm afraid that it might not hold up or be very durable in the long run, to having a projector on here weighing it down and trying to, I'm afraid eventually the plastic will crack. I may try it for a little while, see how it holds up. My other option is to find a piece of metal or maybe even a piece of thin plywood that I can mount, duplicate this on, and then we'll be in business and I don't have to worry about the plastic wearing out. But the first thing we're going to do, we're going to try the plastic, see how well it holds up. So to do this, I need to flip my projector upside down, and I have these little feet on the bottom right here, and this is just a rubber thing, and the rubber pops out to reveal that there's a threaded hole in there that I can attach a screw to and mount this to the plate. So the plate has 4 holes in it already, but those holes are for this bracket to mount to my stand. So I'm going to need holes that match up with the feet holes on my projector. So here's how we're going to do that. So the first thing I need to do is take a knife or some other implement of destruction and take all these little rubber feet off so that I can access all the holes. You can see these pop up really easy. They're just glued on with a little bit of tacky, like rubber cement sort of stuff. It's not too hard, just enough to hold them in place. So now that I've got those rubber feet removed, I need to mark where my holes are at. So I've got a piece of paper, and the paper just covers all 4 holes. So if I mark where the holes are on the piece of paper, then I can take the piece of paper and lay it on top of my my laptop surface, and then mark where the holes need to be drilled in this, drill them, and then I can attach my my projector. So I'm kind of pushing down on this to get the paper to bend around the holes so I can see where it's at. You can see and as I make one hole, mark it, push down, make sure the other holes lined up still. And then we'll do the last one here. You can see my paper just barely is big enough to cover these 4 holes. Alright, so now that I've got these 4 holes marked, I can just lay this down on my tabletop. I'm going to take a little bit of paint to just mark that where the centers of those holes are at, and then I can drill those out. Alright, so I've got my holes here. I've got my marks in this paper, and I want to make sure it's pretty centered. So I can kind of eyeball this and say, okay, this is kind of centered here, left to right. Carefully slide it up. Kind of see where my holes are here, left to right, or up and down. If these holes aren't centered on the piece of paper, and I try to center the piece of paper, then my holes are going to be off. So I need to center the holes and not the piece of paper, unless I made sure that my piece of paper was perfectly square on the bottom of the projector when I did that, and I didn't. So I'm going to take a couple quick measurements and make sure that my holes are on here square, not that the piece of paper is on here square. Alright, so from the top of this is about 2 1/4 inches, and this one's actually about 2 1/4 inches, and this one's only about 2 inches. So that means it's not on there right. Alright, so I'm going to measure this to make sure it's about 2 1/4. Check this one over here and make sure it's still 2 1/4. So once I've got both of those holes that are 2 1/4 inches down, then I know that my holes are square. And so both of those are 2 1/4 inches down. It really doesn't matter a whole lot what these bottom ones are, but these are also about 2 1/4, so I'm pretty square, actually about 2 1/8. And that one there is also 2 1/8. So my dimensions on there are square, and so I can go ahead and mark the center of the hole. So I've just got a small paintbrush and some white paint. Then we take our paper off, and you can see I got 4 little white dots there, and I'll just drill those out. Now they don't have to be exact. My drill bit's going to be slightly bigger than the bolt that I use, so there'll be a little bit of slop there, and that's fine. That'll allow me to line it up and align it right. Alright, so my projector actually came with some screws that fit in those threaded holes, but these are way too short. I know this is black on black here, it might be hard to see, but these are way too short. They're never going to fit all the way through there and get some good thread contact inside that hole. So I'm going to need to find some longer bolts that are this thread. Alright, so we dug through the old bolt bin there, and we're able to find 4 of these that fit this this threaded hole and are tall enough to where once we put the tray on there, it should be able to grip that pretty easily. So I think these will work just great. Alright, so the next thing I need to do is I need to pick out a drill bit that's slightly larger than my bolt here, but that's not bigger than the bolt head. So it's probably going to be maybe this one here. So if we hold the drill bit behind the bolt, you can see the drill bit on either side. So it's bigger than the bolt shaft, but it's obviously smaller than the head of the bolt. So I think this drill bit here will be just fine. Alright, so time to drill this out. Make sure that there's nothing on the bottom side of the hole you're drilling, because you don't want to drill into anything. And there we go. Alright, so now to make sure those holes line up with our the holes in the bottom of our projector. Alright, so you can see one hole there. We got one hole here. We got one hole over here. And we got, it's the wrong hole. We got one hole over here. You can see like that one there is not lined up perfectly. So, you know, we weren't doing this to micrometer level accuracy, but it's close. And so we'll put the bolts through there, and we may have to wobble out a hole or two with the drill bit to get them to fit, but pretty close. And we got one more to go, and it's going to be off. So I'm going to need to wobble this hole out a little bit. I'll show you why. So now that we got those 3 bolts in, you can see that one there's not quite lined up. Because this is looking straight down in the hole, and you can see it's over there at 11 o'clock. So we're going to have to wobble that hole out just a little bit to get it to fit, but no biggie. So we'll just take these 3 screws back out and keep track that we got to wobble that one out at 11 o'clock. This should be pretty easy to do on plastic. So I need to wobble it out in this direction, so I'm just going to apply some downward pressure in that area. You can see I'm getting some shavings off of that, so it's cutting it a little bit. Getting a little bit hot doesn't hurt, and I'm just, now that I think I've got that wobbled out maybe a little bit, we'll put it back on and try it. So hopefully you can see now this hole right here is more oblong than it was. So it's still small enough to where the head of that bolt won't fit through, but hopefully my hole will line up underneath of it. Alright, it looks like this is going to be good. There we go. All 4 bolts screw into that. So now all you got to do is take them off, and then, because these bolts here are going to fit through there like that. So I have to mount these on here first, and then I can put those screws back in. Now, one other thing you'll notice is, like this hole here, it's right up against this ridge. This is a raised ridge, which means that number 1, my bolt's not going to go all the way into the threaded hole, and number 2, it would be slightly off canter because this hole up here and this hole over here are not up against that ridge. So it would make this slightly off kilter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a drill bit and just kind of get rid of this ridge here, so that when I put the bolt in, it's not hitting up against that ridge. Alright, now if I had a Dremel tool or something that'd be a little bit better to take this off with, I'm not that concerned that I need to be that accurate. So I've just got me a big drill bit, and I'm just going to kind of scrape that off with this drill bit. That should be close enough. This would probably work if I had 2 hands to hold this, but I don't. So I may have to go get the Dremel tool. Alright, so we got a Dremel tool. This should make quick work of this little ridge. And it's completely gone. Do the same thing over here for this one. And voila. Now we'll take our our bolts out of this so that we can attach them to our laptop platform. Our bracket will fit over that, and then we'll put our washers and our wing nuts back on here. I'm not going to put the second bracket over here on the other side, because if I did and mounted that on there, I'd never be able to get it on here, I don't think, because this was not, that would not go in far enough to be able to get this on here. So I'm going to have to attach it to this with just one, and then put the second bracket on so that it fits over this thing here. Alright, so I was worried about whether or not if I put both of these brackets on, I could get this thing to fit in there. And so we're going to give this a quick try. I think it's going to work. Or maybe not. Yeah, so I'm going to have to take one of these brackets off, attach this, and then attach my 4 screws here. Alright, so now I've got my brackets on here. This thing is in place. It can't quite slide out on its own. But we can go ahead and tighten it down to where it's close to being tight. As long as we can maneuver it, we should be fine. Alright, so now that's tight. Now I can go ahead and put my screws onto my projector. Alright, so now I've got this part done. What I need to do now is make sure that my projector mounts and that it's pointed in the right direction. So I want to be able, for my projector, to be like this. And that means this mounts this way, and there's no way for this to go down. So that means I have totally messed this up, because I need this to mount like this and my projector to be this way. So what I can do is I can either re-drill these holes here, or I could re-drill my mount holes, but it'd probably be easier to re-drill my holes that go this way so that this mounts like that. So back to the drawing board. Alright, so this time I think I'm going to do a little bit better with my paper holes here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line these up, and then I'm going to poke a hole in the middle of it with a pencil, because the pocket knife really didn't leave me a very round hole. It's hard to tell exactly where the center was, so I think we do it this way, we'll get a better result. Alright, now to mark our holes over here again. So before, this was our projector, we had it this way, but again we need it this way. So we're going to redo these holes. Alright, we'll drill those out. Try this again. As Bullwinkle would say, this time for sure. Alright, so a couple of these are up against the ridges again. In fact, all 4 of them are, so we're going to hit this with a Dremel tool. Alright, looks like that's going to work. Alright, so time to see what this looks like. So now we have a side-mounted projector, which means we can project our song sheets in portrait mode. Now, if this ends up being upside down, what I can do is I can loosen these and flip it around this way. So either way, I should be fine. As long as it's oriented up and down, I'm good. So if you have the need to project portrait mode, this might be a quick and easy solution for you to get that done. So hopefully that helped you out, including the mistakes. Alright, so I have my PDF songbook opened up in Adobe Pro DC, and I can rotate this by going over here to View, clicking on that, and then it says Rotate View Clockwise, and I click that and it rotates. And then I can also make it wider by going to this little icon here and clicking that, and it gets rid of that bar. Now if I need that bar to come back, I just hit the escape key and then the bar comes back. Alright, so one last thing I want to show you is, if you'll notice up here I've got 3 different tabs, and each one of those is a different songbook. So I got my songbook open, PD Max songbook open, and Opie's ukulele songbook open, and so I can have different, if I want to play different songs from different songbooks, I can easily go back and forth between these in my Adobe. Alright, so here I have my songbook opened up in Firefox, and if I want to rotate it, if I'm in this Firefox browser, I go over here to the upper right hand corner where it says Tools, and I just go to Rotate Clockwise. So now I've got my songbook oriented such that it will project sideways in a landscape mode, which when I put the projector sideways is now the portrait mode. Alright, so here I have my songbook opened up in Microsoft Edge. I don't like Edge, but I figured I'd show it to you anyway. So there's a little button right here that says Rotate Right. I click on that, and now my songbook is in landscape or portrait orientation, depending on which way you're viewing it. Here I have my document opened up in an old version of Adobe Acrobat, and for this one I would go to Document, and then go down here to Rotate Pages, tell it to rotate clockwise 90 degrees, and it's actually going to rotate the page in the file. So this probably is not the way you want to do it. Alright, instead you want to go over here to the View tab, click View, and then it says Rotate Clockwise. And now all my pages are rotated, which is what I wanted, and it's not actually changing the orientation of the page in the document. So make sure if you've got Adobe Pro, a version of that you're not rotating the pages by going to the Document tab, but you want to rotate your view by going to the View tab.